everybody. My name is Adam Penna, and I am here today to talk a little bit more about 3D printing and additive manufacturing and how it ties into all of manufacturing. Today, I'm here with Michelle Bockman. She's a Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of 3D Control Systems. 3D Control Systems is an additive manufacturing workflow software that is powered by artificial intelligence. So welcome, Michelle. Wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. And I'm really happy to be here with you as well.
Yeah, we both have so much going on different sides of what's been happening, especially in the last year or so with additive manufacturing. And, software has played such a big role in it. So it's exciting to see what 3D Control Systems is doing out there. And I've even attended some of the demo days that you've had to learn a little bit more about the software, and also when you were at AMUG. So that's where we talked a little bit about doing this. And now it's wonderful to have you here to talk a little bit more about additive manufacturing playing into all of manufacturing. So thanks again for being here today.
Thank you.
Good. Now, we all kind of go through different experiences, and we remember our first experience the most sometimes. And with additive manufacturing, what do you remember as your first experience getting into additive?
Oh, gosh. I mean, probably most of our audience wasn't even alive when I first experienced additive manufacturing. So back in the late 90s, I worked in automotive for Dana Corporation as an applications engineer, and I worked downtown Detroit at Jeep Truck Engineering.
Nice.
And we were doing tolerance stacks or circle stacks where you're putting parts together. And so we had 3D printed our first part back then, and I was amazed with it. I just sat there and stared at the printer, which took hours and hours and hours to make the part. But we put it underneath a vehicle in the engineering lab to make sure that everything fit together.
Okay, what was the part?
It was a controller in the axle. So it was actually the axle underneath the car that makes the car move. Yep. And there's a carrier and a differential case, and then you have the brakes and all of the components. And so we were putting all the components together, and it was interesting because the normal component is like really heavy because it was for a Dodge Ram truck. And I think it was even like the biggest truck. It was a dually, if I'm not mistaken. Nice. And so we were, ready to, have all the equipment in place to be able to jack up the part to get it on, or get help with it. Yeah. And, here this part is like super light, and we put it in, it was like, it worked perfectly. And it was a lot cheaper than, designing a part, designing the tooling for it, and then something's wrong, and you have to go back and start it all over again. And, it's 12, 13 weeks to buy, to build a tool. Yeah. So it definitely helped us through our process and the product development of that axle.
Yeah, and at that time, that was obviously groundbreaking because it sounds very commonplace now. That's what most people are doing now, is finding that part that can be additively manufactured inside of their supply and working with it to upgrade it and see what they could do to mitigate any kind of risk, especially now that we've been looking at that so much in the last year. But wow, that's really neat. That's jumping right in then. You weren't even hearing about it from the outside. It was being right involved in the application right away. That's really neat.
It was. But then there was a space where I didn't do anything with 3D printing for years and years and years. Yeah. And then when I ran logistics and spare parts for GE Healthcare, we were trying to figure out how do we not have last time buys? How do we not buy tooling? Right. How do we not keep parts? Lots of inventory for 35 years because we were making spare parts for medical equipment, and you had to keep them, as part of the regulation. And so then we started exploring 3D printing back then, but it was like, I would say another 10, 15 years later after my first experience.
Wow. Yeah, that's fun. There's so much that goes in, obviously the printing side of it, the manufacturing side of it, but then where it comes from, the design, like you were talking about, and the different industries that you can get into, from the medical to the automotive to the industrial to the aerospace to lifestyle. They're just on and on and on, all these different things that are growing. But at the same time, I guess you kind of remember what brought you in and what made you think about doing it the first time. So that's a cool story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
So obviously, a lot of focus on the good things that have been happening to a lot of good things we see in the industry with the women in 3D printing. That organization is doing really well. And I know you've had your own journey and experience as a woman inside of the industry. So how has that been for you in leadership?
Thanks for the question, because I think it's important. It's an important topic to discuss, and especially, as I see other females trying to, whether they're in elementary school or middle school, high school, college, and then professionals, deciding whether they want to go into STEM. And so, going back a few years ago, when I was at GE, I co-led an organization called GE Girls.
Oh, cool.
And we focused on 5th and 6th grade girls. We built a curriculum to make it cool and fun. And, like we made lip gloss.
Nice.
We made 3D printed bracelets. So there was another time with 3D printing before, I really truly got into it 100%. And, but it was about those girls not losing their confidence, because that was about the age where it's like, you see these girls are in math and science, and then they start to lose some confidence.
Daughter, so
yeah.
I know that whole process very well right now. Yeah, it's very important to have that kind of an outlet for them.
Yeah. And our mission at GE for GE Girls that I led for 2.5 years was to get them exposed to other things than what they might think engineering is or what they think science is. And so we, like I said, we built a curriculum around it and brought girls into summer camps. We expanded the summer camps. And then we followed them through, through college to see, the success of it. And it was very successful, and I'm very proud of that. So that was kind of my first start into helping, younger girls get into STEM or STEAM. And then when you fast forward, even before that, I made it a point to have very, very diverse teams. And I never thought of teams as being, gender or your background. It was more diversity of thought. However, what I found is that I ended up with a diverse team in gender and background, because the thinking process is much better. And I found that we had better outcomes when we had a diverse team. And so about, my goal was always to have 50% of my team, my leadership team is females. And so, I'm still on that mission to make sure that there's a presence of women in the workplace and their voices are being heard. My daughter's a chemical engineering student going into her senior year of UCLA.
That's great.
So, love seeing her. So I even hear like some of the confidence getting lost as they're in universities. And I mentor females, and in the workplace as well. And so it's about, helping them have their voice and feeling okay, to ask the questions. And then women in 3D printing, very near and dear to my heart. We started the organization over an organization at HP. And then obviously there's the Women in 3D Printing led by Nora and founded by Nora. And, I love the mission there, and I love being part of it, and however I can help and bring exposure to 3D printing for women, and make sure that my team, we're recruiting talent as well.
Yeah, it's important to be giving back, especially when you can, and then you have so much to give, which you do. So it's good to hear that you're involved in those type of activities. I think it's wild. Whenever I've thought I'm too busy for it, I've always realized once I'm involved with doing that kind of activity, it gives back to me more than anything. It's like I get something out of it that's really special, and it's like you don't feel that at first when you're just spending the extra time or mentoring somebody until you see them actually coming out the other side of a lot of good things. And anyhow, it's just it's good to see those things being brought up throughout the industry. It's awesome stuff. I know that's a lot of manufacturing experience, and so what advice would you give to any manufacturers that are wanting to learn about implementing or adopting additive manufacturing?
I think there's a learning phase, and you need to understand what it takes to 3D print, because what I have seen in the past is a manufacturer or company will buy a 3D printer, and then it's like, oh, it doesn't work, and so they wipe their hands clean of it, and it sits in the corner and collects dust. And that's, I think those were the early days. I don't really see many companies doing that anymore, but early days it was, they would buy a printer and not understand how to use it. And so, learning how to design for additive is really important. Get adoption at the leadership level, so it's throughout the organization. Also know that 3D printing is complementary, or can be complementary to other technologies. It doesn't have to be the sole device that you're using. And I think if you come in with an open mind and looking for the application, and not, and really understanding how a 3D printer works, and you got the design, adoption, you have classes that you're teaching in an organization, I think all of that is important for adopting 3D printing.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, my gosh, there's so much that goes into the surrounding ecosystem. That's a big word that's used a lot, but it's what's attributed to all the different sides of the process, from the beginning to after it comes out the machine, and everything in between. And that's a lot of what you've been doing on the software side too, on your development with a 3D control system, is looking at that workflow. So talk a little bit about that, like what's been happening with what you've seen with 3D control systems, and how far we've come, because back in the day, like we were talking about, a lot of this stuff was free for all, and there's a lot of time that's wasted. So what is it right now that's becoming so special with the software, especially when you're talking about workflow software?
Sure. So last year I joined 3D Control Systems as an advisor and investor. And then as I learned more and more about the software that they had, which is called 3D Printer OS, it's desktop management workflow. So it's end-to-end, but it's in the desktop area. And we have customers like MIT and tons of universities.
Sure.
And then like Duke and John Deere and Google. So any of these maker spaces that want to allow students or individuals to innovate, they need some sort of software to do that. And so that's where it started. But then when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what's needed in the industrial market. Like there's this huge gap of manual labor, manual steps in 3D printing. Yep. And if we can take out that latency between the steps, or take out the clicks, then that could be huge for the industry. Yep. And so really excited. We launched our new platform called Zap back in February or March.
Right? Zap.
Yeah. Zap.
Cool.
Yeah. And we launched it, a few months back, and we're seeing adoption from customers. We're doing pilots. We have full-on customers. So it's starting to really scale. And I think we're even surprising ourselves at how many problems we're solving that we didn't realize that we could solve with our software.
Yeah, and what are some of those common problems? I'm interested, because it's a big deal, a lot of that workflow stuff. So what are some of the common workflows that actually the software solves?
Right. So the software connects the design through like build, packing for 3D printing specifically, and then it'll take it into, it automatically takes the drawing or the STL file into the 3D printer. And then from there, you can track all of those next stations. So like with HP, because I came from HP, sure, there's the cooling period, and then there's the depowdering. So a lot of that's still manual, because there's no way, it's up to the technology provider, the OEM at that point. But we're able to track all of those steps in an automated way and signal to the folks that are on the floor. And what I've done is I've incorporated Lean Six Sigma into the workflow. Nice. And so I know Lean and Six Sigma is, from the past, but it's still relevant, and it's needed in 3D printing. And so when we come in and look at a solution, we will record the current state, and then we will go through and figure out all of the friction points and how we can automate those. And so that's what we do. Post-processing, QA. And we're that digital thread, and we are as automated as the equipment will let us be automated, meaning that we're integrating and automating into the hardware or other softwares.
That's exciting. Yeah, that's a lot of what we want to see happening. And that software just blows my mind right now. There's so much that can be done with software, and it is happening. So it's really good to see that push. My gosh. So like when you're talking about the manufacturing industry as a whole, and you brought up some stuff in there, like there's things that we've used in manufacturing that have to be used for additive, for 3D printing. And you see that kind of coming along with the software. So what do you think impact of AM to the broad manufacturing industry as a whole looks like?
I go back to what I mentioned earlier about being a complementary technology. So when you look at manufacturing in general, yeah, there are definitely applications that you can use just for additive. And those are great, especially if you can hone in or tune the equipment along the line to get the highest quality, high speed, product out, off of it. I think if you continue to look at that as, one technology, and then if you can, what I said earlier is about being complementary technology with, say, a CNC. So you 3D print it, you send the parts over to a CNC machine, and you're able to get, some of the accuracy that maybe you require in a regulated environment. And so you can use both. And I think that's what's, I think keeping that open mind and being creative and innovative, when you're thinking about how to implement 3D printing or additive, I think that's important. And having that not only, manufacturing background to understand how things work, but then how do you take this new technology with that open mind, that creativity, and how do you complement that?
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into that full manufacturing view. Additive plays a part in it, and it's a growing part. We're trying to dig our way into the whole manufacturing stream in different ways, and there's so much opportunity there. That's what's exciting. That's exciting for all of us as we keep uncovering more applications, different ways of doing things, identifying different parts inside of assemblies that can be improved. There's just so many different things. Lightweighting, like you were talking about, different materials. That's what I think keeps us all us geeks excited about it, I guess.
It's true.
But yeah, so what about some of the barriers of scaling additive? Can you talk about that?
Well, I mentioned speed and cost and quality. Yeah, I think, for that's why choosing the application is really important, and then being able to tune your systems for that application. So you can get very frustrated if you don't do that. Also, the designing, if you don't design for additive or even design for the technology, you might get frustrated. Right. So again, I go back to being innovative and having this mindset that's very open and willing to try new things. But, there's designs that you would say, oh, that'll never work in a 3D printer. However, you get super creative and you're able to put hinges on it. And all of a sudden you're making a part that's, 2 or 3 feet in a bed that's maybe a foot. So it's, it's taking all of that and pulling it together. But I think, the quality level as well, machine to machine variability, batch by batch variability, and being able to tune that system is important. And you tune systems in a traditional manufacturing, and sometimes we forget that. It's like, oh, we got to tune this. Yes, you do. You got to change over just like you used to change over your production line, you got to change over your 3D printing line to fit this type of part.
There's so many different things that happen inside of applications that when you're tuning to the application, really cool things happen. We've all had to deal with the pandemic, obviously, and one of the things that it affected right away was the supply chain. So that's been in a lot of the news, and we've had 3D printing had a good response to that, obviously kind of jumping into a lot of different situations that there wasn't supplies available. So what do you see that happening inside of manufacturing, and what additive is the key for a lot in the supply chain?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I actually lived this real time in not necessarily in additive, but I was a global sourcing manager at my first job at GE Healthcare. And we had to plan for that. And then when I was also responsible for spare parts in the medical industry, we're at a global level. And are we working with suppliers that are sole source? Are you working with suppliers that are, financially stable? And so you kind of have those things that we all know about from traditional, and additive can play a spot to be backup manufacturing. It can be your redundant manufacturing that you need if your supply chain is down. But everybody should have that business contingency plan to make sure that it's all laid out prior to you going into business, into any kind of manufacturing or supply chain. You need to make sure your suppliers, you have dual suppliers in different countries across the world in case there's, a hurricane or an earthquake, and then, or a pandemic. We all saw how 3D printing came to the forefront when this pandemic hit. In 3D printing, we were able to make masks and all sorts of swabs, and it's quite a stuff, ventilators. It's quite a great story that we could pull it together that quickly. And our software was being used on quite a few suppliers out there making products for patients. And but yeah, business contingency plan, making sure you have suppliers, redundant technology, all of that, because you never know about materials. You have a material shortage, like there was a wood shortage. I was trying to build a fence, and all of a sudden prices on wood recently went up.
Yeah. Remember when we were all trying to find good old toilet paper for a while there?
Yeah, toilet paper.
Talk about supply chain. Wow, that was an interesting one. Yeah. Could only 3D print toilet paper. What do we do?
Right. You probably can somewhere.
Yeah, can. The cost saving there. But yeah, that's wow. Just so much inside supply chain has come, to light in the last year, and I think it's great that companies are taking a look at that, taking a look at what parts fit into that category. And I hear a lot more of that talk than I don't. So that's a good thing. It's one more thing that kind of gets things pushed forward, people to start looking at what they can do with 3D printing and make it part of the norm. So it's good to hear that. So yeah, talking about technology, we have the Rapid Plus TCT is coming up in September. And so what has your experience been with that SME event?
So far, it's been great. We got in late, and because we are a startup, and I came in, I was like, we got to go to Rapid. So we weren't signed up last year. So we were fortunate enough to be able to get a booth. And so I've been to Rapid, I think all the years I've been in 3D printing, and it's always been a wonderful show. And what I like about this show is that there's more than 3D printing as well. So you get to see other technologies there, and and it's in person. So I mean, how great is that? I know we were at AMUG, but the Rapid show is just special. It's a really special show, and it's one of my favorite. And I enjoy going to it. I enjoy seeing, all of the new technologies, and I love what SME's doing, with the show. And I'm so glad that it is in person this year.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice. Everyone's looking forward to it. There's a lot of great plans leading up to it. And I can't wait. That's would have been one of my favorites every year, is going to that show. Just that you can see so much technology. It's like a kid in the candy store. Oh, look at that! Oh my God, look at this! Look at this! Look! I just jump around and tour everything and get to think, and it makes me think differently. It really does. It makes you think about how different things happen with groups, and how teams work together and make things happen. And then you get to see that result of the technology at the show. So love that side of it. And, we talked about SME in general, and what would you like to see, or what do you see as SME playing in the additive manufacturing space? What type of role do you see SME playing?
So first of all, I love the fact that they are manufacturing. I'm a mechanical engineer. My emphasis was manufacturing. Yeah. If you didn't figure that out, because my whole career is around manufacturing, but I love the fact that they're pushing forward that agenda. I love the fact that additive is part of it, and they see it as part of it. They see it as an important technology. The panels that they're putting together, and this isn't the only show that I've been to from them, or even in the future, I'll be at a show that they have in Canada, and maybe some of these regional shows. Wonderful. So I think that for future, just this standards, we're all looking for standards.
Yes.
And getting the OEMs, getting all of the companies on the same page when it comes to standards. And I know we're still a fairly new industry, but I think that's somewhere they could play for sure.
Yeah, a big part of the conversation. Hear it a lot. Everybody looking for standards and what we could do to make that happen a lot quicker, because it's out there. It's just a lot of information needs to be shared. A lot of people need to get together and slowly work through the applications. The more applications, the more standards. So we're all in the same game.
Right.
Yeah, it's good. So we to talk about that, we have a community, the additive manufacturing community. I find it a bit different than the manufacturing community, but a lot of the similar type of situation. What do you think defines the AM community?
I mentioned creativity and innovation earlier. I think this community is definitely technical, definitely, gearheads like we are, but I see people in additive having that more creative approach. And I love the community. People are open to share. You look at LinkedIn, there's like videos of people designing the coolest part.
True.
Or showing how they're producing the part, and so there definitely isn't any. Of course, there's competition, but
Sure.
there's no like, hey, this is mine. There's a sharing in the community to help progress the whole like additive manufacturing journey, and we need that.
Yep.
Because it's we're still I think on the cusp of greatness in 3D printing.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I love hearing that. It gets me pumped up just thinking about how much can be done and how much is left to do. And our community is a big part of supporting each other getting there. So I'm very grateful for the community we have. It's always nice seeing it grow too, and the next generation that's coming up and what they bring into the community. Like you were talking about mentoring before. I think that's a big part of it. Being available for the next person who's looking to learn more and making sure they stay instead of going to another industry. That's a big part of it too. So what would be your advice for attracting that younger generation into the workforce of additive manufacturing?
I think if someone's truly curious and wants to revolutionize or wants to be part of a disruptive industry and think differently and really push the boundaries of design, of manufacturing, I think this is the place to be. It's not an easy industry to really make, an application go into series production. It takes hard work. Yeah. And I think you have to go in with full transparency to that person and say, hey, this is going to be hard work, but the reward is tremendous. And I just see so many younger people and everybody, but so proud of the designs that they come up with. It's just, there's definitely this kind of pride thing across the additive community. And I think these new folks coming in, if they can see that, feel the culture of it, and they have that technology and creative mindset and curiosity, I think it's a great play. And they need to see the videos in LinkedIn. We need to get Women in 3D is really important that they continue on their mission. And I know they had a lot of university students at the conference in the end of January, I think it was.
Yep. Type conference that was there. That was wonderful.
Yeah, the type one. Yeah. So I, just continuing to put the word out there on social media, because we know that they're, all on social media about what we're doing and grab their interest. Yeah,
that's important. There's so much that I learned from the younger generation. So having that open door and definitely helping the next person up. I have so many different groups that have the younger people that just blow me away. It's just that there's so much going on and they have so many different ways of looking at things, and they've been playing with this stuff since they were, in first grade. So I'm it's like, to me, it's like the more the merrier. Love to have the next generation come up and teach me something too.
Right.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So we're evolving. How do you see additive manufacturing evolving over the next few years?
I still think that we have quite a leap to get into full-on series production across the board, a technology leap. And I think people are ready for it. It's just how do you get there? And a lot of companies are putting a lot of funding in research and development to do it. So I see the technology leaps happening in the next few years, and wide adoption. You see big corporations, they'll have like multiple types of equipment, just trying to figure out what one's going to work for us best. I think that's going to narrow down a little bit more, especially, based on which applications really take off, because there's thousands of applications right now. Yeah. And some are incredible and you can go into series production. Some are like, hey, this is unique. I could never design this before in traditional, instead of being like a 90-degree angle or a box or a circle, now it looks like you're boned and it's very biological looking and stronger. And so, that's, I think, where we need to go.
Yeah, yeah, I see that as a big benefit, the personalization, customization, the on-demand parts, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff that's pushing forward into the future. We have lots to look forward to. Yeah. Well, Michelle Bockman, thank you for being here. This has been a wonderful time talking to you, and there's so much more to do. And I look forward to working with you and seeing more of what's happening with 3D control systems. And thanks for being a positive leader in additive manufacturing. Really good to be here with you.
Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate it, and love what you're doing out here and the affiliation you have with SME. I think it's what's needed, getting the word out there. So thank you.